So, welcome everyone. I'm Alexander Mihalcea, and today we're joined by Waqar Andrabi, Associate Director of Updapt. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Alexander. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Before we dive in, could you give us a quick overview of what Updapt does?
Absolutely. So, Updapt is an ESG tech company providing SaaS solution to enterprises and funds across sizes and geographies. And we digitally manage the ESG life cycle and track, monitor, and report unstructured and large data sets that are in alignment with global standards and along with the frameworks, along with deep analytics that are provided to them from the solution. So it has a couple of products under the product suite. Product suite of UpTap has multiple ESG solutions around carbon footprint accounting, reporting, supply chain, risk management, net zero, portfolio management for funds and lenders, and then there are empowering business in their decarbonization journey. So basically, it's an ERP solution which helps the businesses to digitalize all of their sustainability related data and exiting the manual intervention or the manual approach of accumulating data differently from each of the sites, locations, supply chain partners, business level, at
Right.
business level, product level. So basically, we automate all of their sustainability journey and we ease them with their data management process with the
hmm
help of our ERP solution.
Okay, that's fascinating. And basically, what inspired at the beginning to create Updapt? Was there a specific moment or experience that sparked this journey?
So basically, a lot of years back, the founders of the solution, because they are from different backgrounds, sustainability, consulting, finance, and the idea was because while this sustainability ESG was very new in the market or very new in adoption, they thought of creating such a solution for some problem which they encountered in their
Okay.
businesses or in their day-to-day jobs. And they found that okay, management of ESG data is going to be very critical in the upcoming years, and they foresee that this is going to be something that is going to be a very mandatory thing for all of the companies across the globe. And
Yep.
there was they finally they thought that they can tap in this problem with a solution which they can build. After years of R&D and building the solution, they came up with Updapt as a solution wherein any company can upgrade and adapt to ESG, which was very new for the companies to adopt. Although they were very familiar with CSR, corporate social
Right.
responsibilities, but ESG was very new for them.
hmm
So in order for the companies not to see ESG as a burden, they thought of creating something that can ease their process and it can help them in managing their ESG data efficiently, and over the time it can be a part of their day-to-day operations.
Okay. But what was your background before starting this venture?
All right. So before I started UpDap a couple of years back, I had headed various roles in business development, and I used to manage and produce conferences with respect to ESG and sustainability. So we were among the first ones to start the line of ESG summits across Middle East, especially in UAE. We had the first ESG World ESG Summit, wherein I came to know about how important is ESG into our day-to-day life, apart from just being a compliance for companies, but yes, apart from voluntarily from your own perspective, ESG and sustainability, I thought is something that is very important in the day-to-day lives of us, and we need to act on it. So I wanted to do something very different rather than doing some anything. So I thought ESG and sustainability is something wherein I can tap in and where I can come in and explore my potential operation, my potential to go into businesses operation, check where they are facing the trouble with respect to management of the easy data, and then recommend them with digital solutions that can help them. And then it started with advocating of the adopting ESG data reporting processes, eradicating greenwashing practices that were very common those days. Because in the beginning, greenwashing was something that we saw very commonly. Companies were they were claiming that they are ESG, efficient, they are sustainable, and they're doing this and they're doing that. But that was without the actual data that they used to present. And hence, we thought of advocating something wherein actual data can be presented in front of everyone, in front of all your stakeholders, with the help of a perfectly auditable output that comes as a part of the solutions offering. So hence I thought of joining UpTap, and then the journey began. And since then, We've been seeing great demand in the market, and we've been seeing great opportunities with respect to
Right.
sustainability here as well.
Right. Awesome. So let's go back to when you first started. So, what major challenges or gaps did you see in the market that made you think this needs to be solved?
I would say the biggest challenge we saw was the lack of standardization across global ESG
Yeah.
frameworks, if I might say. For example, a company operating in Europe and in the Middle East and Asia may need to comply with different, frameworks such as CSRD, BRSR, and GRI, or even some local sustainability frameworks. So all of them were with differing requirements. So then there was the issue of the fragmented data, as I said, data
Mm-hmm.
that was collected across different systems, different formats and business units. Some are on Excel sheets, some were on paper. So aligning
Right.
this data to tell a very cohesive, easy story becomes difficult for companies. And another layer was the cultural and I would say regional variations in ESG materiality. For example,
Okay.
water usage may be a priority in the Middle East, while biodiversity could be a major focus in Europe. So companies
Yeah.
then they realize that, and even now they're realizing that to do this well is very important, and they need to build ESG governance structures and systems that are very flexible yet standardized at their core, and hence the adoption of a digital solution was something that many of the companies have looked into, and still many have taken a lead, and still some others are following the course as well.
Okay. Okay. I see. But I have a curiosity by then. And what are the most significant challenges companies face when implementing ESG reporting across multiple jurisdictions?
So I would say, as I said, different jurisdictions have different, I would say, different frameworks and standards that they have to cater to. Let's suppose if we talk about Europe, CSRD is something that they are using it in UK and the European subcontinent, and BRSR core is something that they're doing in India. So what the successful
Yeah.
companies, what they're doing, they're building centralized ESG frameworks that can be
Mm-hmm.
adopted locally. They define a global ESG strategy and then allow for localization, and then adding or adjusting KPI based on they on the regional regulations. Also, they're investing in the, I would say, internal capacity trainings, training of the regional teams, creating ESG steering committees, and adopting digital platforms like Updapt that support multi-framework alignment. And
Okay.
I would say what helps the most is the cross-functional collaboration. How finance, operations, and legal and sustainability departments all are working together, as they know that ESG is no longer a standalone department's job, I would say.
Okay, okay, I see. That's very interesting. But could you elaborate on why the existing solutions weren't meeting these needs?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, right. So could you elaborate on why the existing solutions weren't meeting these needs?
As I said earlier, the issue of fragmented data was there. That was collected in across different systems and different formats, and even for different business units. So all of these systems were unable to gather it together at one place, wherein it was dedicated, wherein there was an ERP system or a system that was dedicated to ESG related data, and to align with these different regional frameworks. For example, like UpTap, we have an alignment with over 12 plus global sustainability frameworks and standards. And with a click of a button, you can generate any reports that is aligned with any of those standards and frameworks globally. As I said,
Yeah, okay.
these businesses operate in Asia, in Europe, in Middle East, and even in US, where an SEC's, their own rules are there. So hence,
Mm-hmm.
they were finding it very difficult to do these different reportings and different frameworks at a manual level, and there were no systems available who could do that at a very robust and with something that is at one place. So those
Yeah.
systems, the collection of data was very manual, and there was no option of integrating it with the other ERP systems. For example, if somebody who is doing a company at a big level, they're dealing with different vendors. Let's suppose 1,000 or 5,000 vendors to track the ESG, performance or the ESG related data of those 5,000 vendors. Imagine how much time it could take them if they do it
Yeah, right.
manually. And with the help of a system where they can assess them and provide them with questionnaires and expect their answers in a timely manner and provide them with plans. So this was something Updap took care of, and we catered to a larger problems at the core level by meeting people, interacting with them, meeting sustainability leaders, and having a conversation with them that what is the point that currently they are looking at and how Updapt can solve it. And hence, Alhamdulillah, we've been able to cater that pretty well with the help of Updapt. So bringing that completely ESG driven or an ESG specific ERP system, which is not just a part of compliance, but we have seen it doing multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses are able to achieve operational efficiencies, and they are able to take care of the stakeholder requirements as well with respect to different reports, and also
Okay.
management for the management to understand the ESG related or sustainability data in a very easy manner. Updap provided them with different dashboards, a very simple user interface. As I said, we didn't want any of the teams or any of the department to see it as a burden, but rather than a day-to-day process or in their business as well.
Right, right, right. So, walk us through how Adapt addresses these challenges. What makes your approach unique?
So as I definitely answered majority of these in my previous question. So let's suppose if we talk about collating the business data, the first thing is to collation of different across different, the collation of data at different business level, plant level,
Yeah.
site level, product level. So any company might have different n number of branches, n number of subsidiaries, n number of plants or locations. So to collate this data differently on manual level was definitely a time taking and a difficult process. And how Uptap manages it, we deploy the central solution in the company, and then we configure them, and we onboard all of these locations onto the system, and we give different user accesses to different process or data
Mm-hmm.
owners in those specific locations, sites, plants, even if it's in another continent, even if it's a different business group. So you can create a number of hierarchies or business structures in that company. So first we solve the problem of accumulation of data. Then if it was in different formats, so a regular format, a streamlined format of data is being adopted with the help of the UpTap system, wherein people can enter the data in those specific formats in which it is required. And then the GHG accounting and for scope one, two, and three happen in the background that is aligned to global standards and frameworks and
Okay.
rules and regulations as well. Hence, making it an automated process for those process or the data owners. And the third thing was, of course, to display these data at a very granular level or maybe broad level, macro level or a micro level. For example, one particular business might want to see the data at their own site level or a plant level,
Yeah.
while the board might want to see it at a very, group level, like,
Right.
okay, which is the highest, which is the best performing site, which is the best performing company with respect to ESG, and which is the lowest performing site, so that they can take particular corrective actions, course corrective, actions can be taken. And then reporting, of course, was a difficult challenge across multiple frameworks, and we made it easy that they can generate reports that are, comparable with year-on-year comparison, or maybe they can even forecast their future emissions. With the help of that, they can correct their, sustainability related, I would say, goals or maybe some initiatives that they might want to take. So hence, all of that was catered with the help of such a solution.
Okay, okay. So, what unique sustainability challenges and opportunities exist in the UAE market?
So UAE is a very interesting, I would say, market overall. And the reason why I say this is that, because of its unique location, I would say.
Yeah.
So with location, I would say, for example, UAE is positioned in a place wherein we have a lot of solar related opportunities. So solar related opportunities, with that, I mean, challenges in the country. This country's extreme climate requires high energy and water consumption, and they have heavy dependency on fossil fuels. So I would say decarbonizing in such a context, especially with the year-around cooling needs stuff, and hence the district cooling methods that UAE is adopting, was one such opportunity that they tapped in as a form of
Mm-hmm.
overcoming that challenge. But of course, with respect to opportunities, I would say its geography makes it ideal, as I said, for solar energy expansion. There's a massive, I would say, investment potential in hydrogen, circular construction, and climate tech as well. Saying that, of course, the policy support is very strong, I would say. The government is
Okay.
creating a real business case for companies to innovate through green building regulations, carbon markets, incentive mechanisms, Even in fact, you might have heard that there was a recently they launched a blue visa program for expats, a 10-year
Hmm.
residency program exceptionally for sustainability professionals who are doing something really different in the country. So yes, I would say regional environment context, possesses hurdles, and there are challenges, but its infrastructure, leadership, and appetite for innovation positions it to lead several
Right,
sustainability domains, and it's doing it pretty well. It's taking a lead
right,
in
right,
the
right.
region as well.
And then, how are UAE businesses approaching ESG differently than other regions?
You mean to say in the UAE? Yeah, as I said, we're seeing strong momentum in decarbonization, especially post the COP28 that was hosted in UAE. So companies are exploring, carbon offsets, green building certifications, and energy efficient, I would say, retrofits with respect to adopting of these things. While we all know that it's not mandatory in the region as of now for all of the companies to do, but they're taking a lead. Yes, they're taking they do they're taking a lead in that. I would say they're very responsible to the top-down policy direction. As I said, with the government's net zero 2050 strategy and net zero carbon emissions for oil and gas companies by 2030, and also a lot of green economy plans and recent hosting of COP28, they have moved from taking ESG as optional, but taking it as essential. I would say, unlike some of the regions where ESG pressure comes from investors or customers, here it is often driven by regulatory compliance. Not compliance, I would say, it's regulatory anticipation of that compliance and alignment with the
Okay.
national goals. So there's always a strong emphasis on innovation, whether it's smart buildings, renewable energy, green financing, through various hubs like DIFC, etc. The other big difference, of course, they take it very seriously, is the speed. So UAE businesses are adopting ESG and digitization and sustainability KPIs much faster than in more mature but slower moving regions, I would say. That's what we have seen
Right.
with respect to our system. So people are exploring it. People are asking, okay, how can we do better? How can we do it faster? So yes, speed was also something that is very important.
Okay, okay. But I have a curiosity by then. So, when you talk to potential clients, what's the biggest misconception they typically have about what you do?
So the biggest misconception is that they see that a solution like ours or a digital ESG solution is just applicable for companies with whom the ESG reporting is a part of compliance.
Okay.
So that's what we try to tell them, that it is not just that it's a part of compliance that you use it for, but we see this from I would say an investment perspective, having such a solution, because it helps not only helps them to take care of different stakeholder expectations or maybe compliance, but also achieve operational efficiencies by using such a solution, I would say. For example, I would say some of the businesses might not be aware of the inefficiencies in energy, water, and waste that they were facing. But after this, after taking care of all the data and monitoring and
Yeah.
reporting them, it can lead to cost savings as well. Another is that they think that okay, it's just a part of compliance. When it is there, we'll come in. But on the reputational front, I would say companies are there who are building very strong brand trust and I would say customer loyalty, and especially among younger consumers and talent. So not to link it with just with compliance, but also in various other aspects that the ESG data or the presentation of ESG data or being a sustainability committed company, it can help them in various other ways as well.
Also, could you share a specific success story of a client who saw significant results using your solution?
So I would say as of now, we're dealing with around 125 plus clients globally. And we have seen clients from small, medium-sized clients to a large-sized clients. The revenues were ranging
Yeah.
from $100 million to $30 billion. So one such success story, I would say that we recently onboarded a client who is a tech giant himself. They are a global tech giant, but with the help of Updapt system, of course, a creation of such system with them might not be much of a challenge, but based on the R&D and D and the success stories that we have had with our clients
Yeah.
previously, so they thought of, no, let's take this solution. It's a tried and tested solution. We've had multiple meetings and we onboarded them with the clients. And with the help of tech for a tech company, we managed to achieve a lot of, I would say, data discrepancy that was earlier there. and now it is not there. And with the help of tech, for a tech company, we are able to streamline all of their sustainability related data at one place, so that they are able to now they are able to work on them, take course correction measures. And also they've said that it has helped them to achieve a lot of confidence at the investors perspective as well. They were able to procure some finance as well, with respect to green bonds or sustainable investments. As you know, banks and financial institutions now take this very seriously. They are asking the clients or the investee companies provide a very detailed ESG report and their future plans as well. So with the help of our solutions, one, they've streamlined the data pretty well. Second, they've achieved operational efficiencies and they are able to reduce their costs, especially with respect to energy consumption and water as well. And the third thing is it helps them with the investors as well. So a lot of such success
Okay.
stories in different industries. We work with over
Yeah.
75% different industries. But yes, I would say at a very broader perspective, this is something that we have done so far.
Okay, I see. I see. And looking at the broader industry, what key trends are you seeing emerge?
So we're seeing, I would say, we are seeing a strong momentum with decarbonization. If I talk about, let's suppose, if we talk about UAE, especially post COP28, companies are exploring carbon offsets and green building certifications and energy efficient retrofits for that matter. So there's also, I would say, notable rise in the green and sustainable finance. As I said,
Yep.
ESG criteria are increasingly being embedded into leading frameworks and are gaining traction. Another trend I would say is the alignment with the global frameworks. As I said, like ISSB, even if it's not yet mandated, as I said, but UAE businesses want to stay ahead of global investor expectations, and they're using these
Right.
ESG and sustainability related data pretty well with respect to other perspective, other things as well, including their marketing, including their brand building as well. So I think ESG reports, companies, as I said, with whom it is not mandatory, they're taking it very seriously and they're staying ahead of time.
Okay, okay. But how do you see ESG reporting requirements evolving globally?
So I would say globally, successful companies, if I talk about successful companies, they're building, as I said, centralized easier frameworks that can be adopted locally and that they can adopt, they can be global standards as well. As we're moving into an era of convergence and accountability as well. So, for example, standards are consolidating. ISSB, for instance, is being, bringing coherence by building on frameworks like TCFD and SASB that we used before. And meanwhile, CSRD in the UE and in the Europe, I would say, and SEC's climate disclosures rule in the US are raising the bar for both the depth and the accuracy of the ESG reporting, for that matter. Also, we are seeing a very strong shift, I would say, towards forward-looking data, scenario planning, and double materiality assessment. What impacts the business, and what does the business impact? So, along with the future emissions forecasting and drafting of the net zero plan. So, this is something that is, very importantly, they are using it because, see, assurance will become the norm eventually. ESG data will be audited just like financial data in the coming years, which means systems, even if it still does, we're providing audit ready data from the solution as well, and the companies are getting it audited, which means systems possess the processes and data quality will need to be upgraded accordingly.
Right, 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 right. And how are these trends affecting how businesses operate in your space?
So I would say the global trends, we're seeing various, as I said, strong momentum with decarbonization. There is also a notable rise in the green financing and sustainable finance. On the tech front, if I say, there's a growing interest in digitizing the ESG tracking, real-time dashboards, emission analytics, and AI-driven reporting. They are gaining traction. That's the specific trend that we have seen. Another trend, of course, is aligning with the global frameworks like ISSB, IFRS, S1, S2. As I said, even if it's not yet mandated, but the businesses want to stay ahead of global investor expectations and, of
Yeah,
course,
right.
a step ahead of the compliance. Because, see, having such a thing in the business is a part of the, I would say, major change management. and
Right.
businesses don't want to do it last moment,
Yeah.
and so that they mess up everything, but they're doing it before. So a lot of businesses are doing that. Some are taking a lead, and some are still behind, but they are exploring these options, and it is good to see that people are actually interested in doing that voluntarily as a part of their responsibility towards nature as well, not to forget, or and the society also.
Okay, okay. And in your opinion, what do you think most business owners are getting wrong when they're trying to address this specific problem?
Of course, see, because as I answered in the previous question, the thing that they're getting wrong is first that it is just as a compliance that they need to see it. There's no
Yeah.
other reason that, apart from compliance, that they should do it. The third thing is that they fail to understand that tracking and monitoring of ESG related data might result and definitely will result in have achieving operational efficiencies. The other thing is that they've failed to realize that keeping it at the last moment will not only create problems for them, but it will not let, it will give the team or the business or the specific teams an idea that this is a burden for us, because it's a last moment change management,
Yeah.
and they didn't get time to see the work through it, and of course, that an ESG or sustainability driven methodology or ESG or sustainability reports might not be useful for the business owners apart from compliance. Definitely not. Many businesses I've seen, they're boasting about the ESG and sustainability related performances along with the data. The ones that are not presenting the data, of
Yeah.
course, is a part of the other greenwashing thing, but they're using it pretty well. And with the help of that, they're securing different investors and financiers, and also they're securing the customers and the, I would say, yeah, the customers' confidence as well to maybe invest in that company, to purchase their shares, or maybe to
Yeah.
purchase their products. Sustainability, a lot of things apart from compliance. They just need to forget it. Just it's a part of compliance. It's far more than compliance as we speak.
Okay, okay. So, in just some words, what advice would you give to business owners who want to stay ahead of these changes?
So I would say sustainability is now a board level issue, Alexander. So it will
Okay.
increasingly define access to capital, risks, ratings, customer loyalty, and talent attraction, as I said. So companies should integrate sustainability into their core strategy rather than keeping it siloed, as I said, keeping it separate, keeping it that will have a real edge for them. This includes linking ESG metrics to executive compensations they can do, or embedding sustainability into procurement and using it to drive innovation as well. And of course, as global supply chain demands ESG transparency, companies that lag behind may even find themselves excluded from
Yeah.
key partnerships or even markets. So, sustainability will be a differentiator financially, operationally, and reputationally as well. If, in a quick words, I might want to summarize it, it's a no longer nice to have thing. ESG is no longer a nice to have thing. It's a strategic imperative. While regulations may differ with but the direction is very clear. More transparency, better data, a tighter alignment with business values. So companies that act early will be the ones to lead, and both in impact and performance.
Okay, great, great advices. And as you wrap up, what's next for that? Any exciting developments on the horizon?
So Updapt, as I said, it's a product company, and sharpening all our existing tools and building new ones is a part of our bread and butter. See, the objective for Updapt is that it becomes a one-stop solution for all the sustainability needs of any organization as the needs come up, and we are continuously upgrading and updating the tool with new features, and we have a project a product, I would say, roadmap in the next coming months. So we're exclusively working on EHS related metrics as well, incident management, and also something to enterprise risk management as well. We've tried and tested. A lot of modules are being used by I would say many clients globally, but we still have a lot of products in pipeline. We've tracking the finance emission for banks and lenders. I would say many notable and global banks are using a solution to track their borrowers and to assess the ESG performances of their borrowers and rank and rate them. So a lot of ESG linked products are in pipeline, which we are rolling out in the next couple of years. One such challenge we were facing is the language barrier. So we've launched, we're going to launch an option wherein we can have the tool output in multiple languages. Arabic, we have already started with Arabic as the first one. But yes, we can work on any other languages based on any client's preference. For example, if some client wants us to present the data in Japanese, we can do that. If somebody wants to do it in Russian, we can do that. So we're working
Okay.
on those language, as I said, because businesses might operate in very different regions.
Yeah. Then. Yeah.
One a company based out in US might have some operations in the Middle East as well, in Russia, in India,
Right.
in Japan, in China. They might want to be interested in accumulating all the data across these regions, and then language shouldn't be a barrier in this. So we're working on that as well. And yes, we're growing day by day with a handful of clients, I would say, in with us, 125 clients plus we're working, and every day we're getting new clients onboarded, or I would say, new features rolled out. So
Okay.
yeah, I would say I would recommend to keep following our social media handles for companies who are looking at such modules and tools, and we'll be updating them with the new features and modules that they can have.
Okay. That's really interesting. And for listeners who want to learn more or potentially work with Adapt, what's the best way to get in touch?
So the best ways to get in touch is follow our LinkedIn page, and also visit our website www.updapt.com. So very simple. Just go to the careers section and go. We continuously engaging in webinars. We are
Yeah.
arranging webinars that are free to attend. Anybody can gain knowledge from that. We are having insightful conversations with sustainability experts, industry leaders, policy makers, decision makers in the industry, and we're getting to know what all their pain points are, or what are their expectations are, or what all they are expecting to happen in this region. And of course, follow our LinkedIn page. We're continuously uploading. We have our monthly newsletters that come out. So subscribe to those newsletters from the website as well, and we'll keep you updated about all these and sustainability trends globally.
Okay. Perfect. 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 So thank you for sharing these insights about you, about your company, and about the whole story. And thank you for this amazing podcast session.
Thank you so much, Alexander. It was wonderful talking to you.
So see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
So, welcome everyone. I'm Alexander Mihalcea, and today you're joined by Andy Martin, Business Development Director of Dualstream. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Before we dive in, could you give us a quick overview of what Dualstream does?
So Dualstream are a security integrator by name, but we have a sort of point of difference in that we focus very much on retail, supply chain, and e-commerce, and we focus on, I suppose, what we would call smart solutions, as opposed to traditional CCTV. So although we use a lot of video and access control in particular, we usually join them up with, they're usually connected systems with other operating systems. So we do traditional security, but most of our sort of energies are around operating efficiency, reducing loss. But we do some crime reduction stuff.
Right, that's fascinating. And what inspired you to create Dualstream? Was there a specific moment or experience that sparked this journey?
Well, I'm not one of the founders, but the founders were invited by a big retailer to work with them exclusively initially on some key projects. So that's how Dualstream was formed. And I've worked with Dualstream within the industry as a partner for some time on those specific projects, and then joined them nearly 3 years ago to develop some new customer bases and some new solutions.
Okay, and what is your background before starting this venture?
Well, my background initially was in the police, but a long time ago. And then I've worked for nearly 30 years in retail, so as head of loss prevention and head of operations in both supply chain and retail stores.
Okay, okay. So let's go back to when you first started. What major challenges or gaps did you see in the market that made you think this needs to be solved?
Yeah, so I think I've always considered myself more, although I was often in the sort of loss prevention space and security space, I often saw myself very much as an operating retailer as opposed to a security professional. So from that point of view, I've always been driven by improving operating systems, serving the customer better, and using security and loss prevention routines and technology to support the overall retail and logistics operations. So that's always been my motivation. Obviously, controlling crime and controlling disorder and improving the shopping environment is part of that, but it's only a part of that. So I've always been interested in the wider sort of retail landscape, if you like. So that's my inspiration. That's what I enjoy.
Okay, I see. And I have a curiosity by then. How do your IoT devices and AI analytics work together to identify potential security threats?
So what we very much do, I mean, AI is quite a difficult subject to sort of condense and pigeonhole, if you like. So from our point of view, what the way we would describe or use AI is using software and analytics, if you like, to identify an event and create an automated response through IoT devices. So typically it can be notifying, for example, AI recognizing a bulk selection, which is unusual from a display, and then creating an automated response through a speaker, those kind of things. So what we're really doing is I suppose, if the way we look at it is, if you were sitting in front of a CCTV monitor all day watching something and something caught your interest and you wanted to carry on watching, can we recreate that through AI essentially and bring that to the operator to say something's just happened in real time? We can create an automated response that might put that person off or might change that person's behavior, but we're also going to create a real-time response that allows you to safely react to that risk. So that's where we are. So if you like, the AI and the IoT connectivity, from our point of view, is a feature in every solution that we provide, and it's our starting point, if you like. And our sort of company motto is align, design, and deliver. And the alignment, of course, is recognizing that challenge that the operator has and aligning the technology with that, designing in then not just that the technology works, but that their operating model fits with that technology. Because again, technology working on its own doesn't provide a solution. And then the delivery piece, of course, is making sure that we continue to drive improvements, because the one thing that we recognize when we've got business critical solutions out there is that they can't stand still. So they're the three tiers, if you like, that we continue to work with retailers on.
Yeah, right. And what types of events can your system detect, and how does the automated response system work?
Well, to give you one that relates to in-store shop loss at the moment, which is very prolific and news grabbing at the moment. What we've worked with a number of retailers, UK supermarkets, to design systems that create what we call early quality triggers. So typically with organised crime groups, they will be stealing certain product types, which we can identify, and they will steal them in bulk, but typically not too greedily. So a lot of the sort of violence that we see on TikTok and the smash and grab sort of thing is not how the organised professionals work. Yeah. They tend to work beneath the radar, if you like. So our systems identify bulk selection early. And what that allows the retailer to do safely is, firstly, be notified of that risk. And then secondly, identify it at an early stage. And the great thing about identifying it at an early stage is that the suspected thief at that stage has a very different mindset to when they're escaping the building, if you like. So they're caught early in the process, which has a different effect on the way their behaviour then continues, because they know they've been identified early. But it also gives the retailer a safe environment in their own environment to assess that risk before the confrontation, the conflict has arisen. And what we're finding is that it often deters, and even we see products return to the shelves, because the professional criminals will prefer to move on quietly and go somewhere where they can, if you like, select and not be detected. So that's sort of one use there. So we're literally looking at how the customer interacts with product, and if it's unusual, we're creating a trigger. In a supply chain environment, we've got AI where we're identifying freight at one point of its journey, and then almost doing a facial recognition type of application where, say it's a pallet leaves one particular site, and it looks like this, and we capture some enrollment images of that pallet leaving, and we identify it by its label. And then when that label's identified again, we compare it again, much as you would do with facial recognition or any other kind of metrics that are used in analytics. And we come back and say, well, that is either 90% similar or 80% similar. And at that stage, the operator can decide whether to check the pallet for damage or theft or whatever else, or it can, of course, streamline that whole process and move it through the supply chain quickly, because it's confident that it is, first of all, it's the pallet they were expecting, and secondly, that it looks exactly as it did when it was first shipped. So that's both solving a loss problem, but also increasing the ability to streamline the process, but with some validation that they're not losing anything by doing so. So there are a couple of examples where we use video images, if you like, and IoT devices to streamline process and identify risk.
Okay. And for example, what was the breaking point that made you decide to tackle this problem?
So what we do, we've got a real reputation now where, again, moving away from the typical security problem, which might be I've got a hole in my fence and somebody's come through. We've got a real reputation now with operators and senior stakeholders, particularly in retail, where they will literally come to us and say, this is my problem statement. Do you think we can marry up any technology with our operation to solve that problem? Often again, the pallet work is quite interesting, because that starts off, I suppose, with a headline statement around freight crime, which has been identified. But then we're also in a position where the AI can also say, well, we can help you with your compliance as well. So in actual fact, that has now moved on, that conversation. And this is, I suppose, where we continue to develop solutions and say, well, if a pallet's above 1.8 meters high, it's more likely to be damaged in transit. So at the point it's dispatched, can you tell us if there's a pallet that's more than 1.8 meters? Do you see what I mean? So it's always a moving feast, and we always make sure that we continue to drive value, essentially from the same analytics, but used in a different manner and creating different data to support decision making.
Okay. So walk us through how Dual Stream addresses these challenges. What makes your approach unique?
I think we're quite unique because we always stay with the problem. So we work very much on a consultative basis rather than a supplier basis, if that makes sense. We very rarely get involved in tenders and commoditized products and solutions. We tend to specialize in things where and for example, the pallet solution we described, and we've been almost 18 months working with the retailer on that. So that sort of is what makes us unique. And we take some commercial risk with that, but it's a very measured risk. And of course, what you're doing through that process, you're also building up the trust of the end user. One, that you'll stay with the problem, and two, that you've got the ability and capability and skill to manage that problem.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what makes us unique, without a doubt, particularly in our industry. But you've got to be brave, and you've got to have the sort of longer term in mind when you're doing these kinds of projects.
Okay, I see. And when you talk to potential clients, what's the biggest misconception they typically have about what you do?
I think the biggest misconception is that people watch television and watch things like CSI, and they really believe that you can do anything with a CCTV image, and the image is the image, and it can't be enhanced like it is on television, and it can't be. So from our point of view, and again, this is another reason why we work on such a consultative basis. We also have to manage the expectation of the end user and say, look, you will not see something that isn't there, although they do that on television. So I think that's the biggest misconception, is that people think AI is magic, and people think that video is magic. And to an extent, you can create some magic, but at the end of the day, it has to be a realistic expectation. And what we typically say to our customers is, this will not completely solve your problem, but we will take you far enough in the right direction for it to be of value. And we do work with them on some really strict return on investment criteria around that. And the pallet example is really good. That does not solve 100% of the problem, but it gives you a really good indication of where the problems may be and gives you an opportunity to intervene.
Yeah, right, right. And for example, how has AI transformed the approach to retail security compared to traditional methods?
Well, I think massively, because the great position we're in at the moment is that we recognise now that when we're working with analytics in particular and AI, it's only going to get better because the learning and the machine learning and the analytics get better with use. The more video that we put through the system, the better it gets. So that's really, from my point of view, what the big difference with AI is, that you start at one place and you continue to develop and improve.
Okay, okay. Also, could you share a specific success story of a client who saw significant result using your solution?
Yeah, we can. So one of the solutions that we deploy in e-commerce, and this is for a big sports brand, they wanted to identify through video where their returns policy was being misused. And the way they wanted to do this was to tag a return consignment. So we use the label to do that with the actual return product, and be in a position to have video validation that the refund wasn't valid. And they reduced their returns losses by £160,000 in 5 weeks, just by using that method. And similarly with another sports retailer on the outbound, which is obviously the customer um, e-com, traditional e-com buying platform, we had a situation where customers were making claims that items were not included in their parcels. So, for example, I ordered 3 t-shirts and only received 2. Those claims were being made and the product was being sent to the customer reluctantly on occasions, but being sent to the customer. We were actually in a position, again, using exactly the same technology we used for the pallet and everything. We read the label, tag the video to it, and we're able to say then with confidence to the customer, no, you definitely did get 3. We've got a monitored system, and of course the claim is then dropped. Or even better, if the retailer does make a mistake, they know they've made a mistake, and they can improve that customer experience then, because they can sort of with confidence say, we will send you that product, we've made a mistake, you'll get it tomorrow, because they know that it's not a false claim.
Right.
And we'll send you a £5 or £10 e-commerce voucher for your next purchase. So it improved the customer service. So we're improving their loss and improving their customer service. So that's a good example.
Right, right. And looking at the broader industry, what key trends are you seeing emerge?
I think for me, the trends that we're seeing now is a move towards data-driven decisions through video. Now, for example, retailers are using video to notice spaces on their shelves and replenishing from there. So, for example, video that's linked to their stock file that essentially says there's nothing on the shelf, but there's something in the stock room, for example, those kind of things. And again, it's this video creating an automated response, or the ability for an automated response. So I think, so I suppose we would call it data in and data out. The camera, if you like, a data out project is the camera providing some data because it's noticed something. The data in piece is using their existing data and then checking the video whether that's valid. So those are the two sort of areas where we see a big link, the link between video and data, backwards and forwards.
Okay, okay. And how are these trends affecting how businesses operate in your space?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a much wider use of video to validate and verify a position to improve the customer service. So we work on three real tiers really. Can we serve the customer better in real time?
Yeah.
Can we provide data that creates enough insight to improve customer experience per se, and continue to develop the processes around that? And can we identify and respond to risks, loss risks, if you like, in real time? So they're if you like, the 3 pillars that we, if you like, from a return on investment point of view. look at.
Okay. And for example, how are you adapting your solutions to address evolving security threats?
Sorry, what was that?
Right, so how are you adapting your solutions to address evolving security threats?
I think the biggest evolution for us is the way that we create notifications from AI. So we typically, in a retail environment, will push covert notifications of a problem into headsets. We're using things like in-aisle beacons, so there's a visible. So, for example, if a shelf is empty, a beacon goes on in the aisle, so the team know that they've got that. We're creating some really interesting hierarchies around video where different stakeholders can see only the video that pertains to them.
Yeah.
So that's again really interesting. Where you look at a business where a big brand that we work with have got, obviously they've got their own fulfillment, they've got their own manufacturing plants, and they've got their own retail stores, and they've got their own e-commerce. And all four of those people use the platform in completely different ways with completely different hierarchies and permissions. So again, that sounds very easy, but making sure that we set up those systems so that the stakeholder value can be sort of driven throughout the whole business is an art in itself, because typically it's been something that's video's been very much locked down. And of course, when you're widening that stakeholder group, you still have to be conscious about privacy issues and control. So that's quite an art in itself.
Yeah. And what do you think most business owners are getting wrong when they're trying to address this specific problem?
I think that when I speak to retailers in particular, I think they still don't understand the value that can be got from CCTV. If I'm being honest, I still think I don't want to describe it as being lazy. But they have a very siloed view of what video is, and they almost want to treat it like a dark art because then they can own it rather than share it. So I think that's where the biggest mistakes are made. For me, if I was working in that environment now, I would open up this technology to everybody in my business. Now, not everybody can use it, but let's open it up to everybody and let's see where we can drive value. And that's the biggest mistake: is don't treat CCTV just as a security method. There's ways of making it secure. There's ways of protecting people's privacy, but there are also ways of not only looking after welfare but improving overall performance by using video correctly and sensitively to manage what goes well and what doesn't go so well within an operation.
Okay. And what advice would you give to business owners who want to stay ahead of these changes?
Have a plan and include different stakeholders in that plan. So again, often with security issues, it's a bit of we call it a sticking plaster to mend a broken leg. You know, they'll have a specific problem and react very quickly to that problem to solve it by making an investment that is probably in the long term not future proofed, not sensible, and not part of an overall plan. So to me, it will be have an overall plan, continue to review it because the technology continues to drive forward, but have a plan and don't invest anything in CCTV if you haven't got a plan and a joined up.
Right. And for example, for retailers who are considering implementing AI-powered security solutions, what advice would you give to this?
The advice I would give around AI is there's a lot of claims about it that are not made. So for me, and we manage this in a really disciplined way. Again, as part of your plan, part of that plan is to have a really clear proof of concept process.
Yeah.
So if you know, it might not do what it says on the tin. So make sure that in your environment, that technology works with your operating model, and that's done through a structured proof of concept that everybody agrees. So from the start of that is what are we trying to achieve? What is the technology that we're using? And what are the key milestones that we have to achieve before it's a success? That would be for me. Because what happens in this industry is people do trials, and the trial just means they get a free camera and nobody really looks at it because it's free.
Right.
do a proper structured and invest in a proper proof of concept plan and hit the milestones that you agree you're going to hit. Then make your investment.
Okay. Okay. Right. And as you wrap up, what's next for Dual Stream? Any exciting development on the horizon?
Well, we continue to develop our software team. So our software team has gone from 1 to 6 people in the last 12 months. And that is typically, we're starting to write our own algorithms and analytics and create our own, mainly for the customers who ask us to solve problems that there's not yet a solution for. We also work with analytics providers in certain spaces, excuse me, where we don't really necessarily want to reinvent the wheel, but we might need to do some development with them to make it suit the operating model of our end user. So that's a big area for us. We've also invested in and we continue to invest in a sister company that creates hardware. So we have a smart shelf product, which is if you like, a weight detection
Yep.
product. We have the IP beacon, IP speakers, and other hardware that we're creating as well to work with our solutions. So we're doing the hardware, we're doing the software, and we're doing the service part of our business. So again, we're developing, I suppose, our end-to-end capability.
Okay. And for listeners who want to learn more or potentially work with Dual Stream, what's the best way to get in touch?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, of course, or you can get me on my email. I'm probably the best first point of contact. Andy.martin@dualstream.co.uk. And it's best to just get in touch with the problem. Again, we don't do a huge amount of marketing. We don't have a lot of brochures because a lot of what we do you can't put into a brochure. It's not commoditized. So it is. If you're scratching your head, come and talk to us, and we'll probably find a way with you of solving that problem or getting you at least far enough along that route to understand it better.
Right, right. Perfect. So thank you for sharing those insights about you, about your company, and about the whole story. And thank you for this amazing podcast session.
Thanks a lot. Enjoyed it. Thanks, Alexander.
Great. So see you on the next episode. Bye.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Bye.